What time is it?
It's time for art!
Fourth and fifth grade, welcome back. As we continue our journey through art history, we are still in the Renaissance. This will be one of our last two Renaissance assignments. We just spent a very long time learning about the human body, studying it the way Leonardo da Vinci would have studied it back during the Renaissance. When Leonardo was a kid, he probably saw a lot of flat-looking pictures, and a lot of people wonder, why was artwork so bad during the Middle Ages? Leonardo da Vinci probably saw pictures like this when he was a kid, and if any of you turned any picture in that looked like this, with all this level of detail and all this color, you'd get an automatic A. But I will say, it doesn't look very realistic. It looks like a lot of times the artists are kind of drawing from memory. During the Middle Ages, social status was really important, so emphasis was put on how big an object was in a picture and not necessarily how realistic it looked. Important buildings and people were emphasized for the sake of realism. And during the Renaissance, they really wanted to say, hey, how can we make our pictures look better? How can we make them look more realistic? So they gave it a lot of thought. A lot of figure work looked very stiff, and it was Leonardo who kind of studied the human body so he could draw it and paint it the way it really moves dynamically. There were a lot of things working against this artwork to make it not look realistic. Sure, some of the figures overlapped, but they didn't really show depth or distance. And one thing that artists started studying was one-point perspective. And that's what our lesson is today. We're going to do a very simple introduction to one-point perspective. One-point perspective means that the one point is called the vanishing point, and everything on your picture will seem to vanish or disappear to that one point. The mathematical theory of perspective drawing allowed Renaissance artists to draw the world that they observed more realistically. There was an architect from Florence, Italy, named Filippo Brunelleschi, who studied Greek geometry, and he developed a theory on perspective that he could apply to his own knowledge of geometry. Another artist, Leon Battista Alberti, applied some more observations to the work of Brunelleschi. He wrote a book called On Painting. And for many artists, it was the primary source for our understanding of one-point perspective. One painting that really emphasized one-point perspective was by an artist named Raphael. No, not that one, this one. His painting, The School of Athens, painted between 1509 and 1511, is a really good example of one-point perspective. There are archways that get smaller and smaller and smaller in the middle of the picture, and it kind of leads your eye to the one focal point, the vanishing point, in the middle of the picture. However, another great Renaissance example of perspective, and one that's used a lot to demonstrate one-point perspective during the Renaissance, is Pietro Perugino's Delivery of the Keys, painted in 1482. I can see why art scholars and teachers of perspective use this picture. Not only does it lead your eye to the vanishing point in the middle of the picture, it also shows scale. The people in the foreground are large, the people in the middle ground are medium-sized, and the people in the background are teeny tiny. So as you can see, paintings during the Renaissance did get more realistic. They went from this to this, and that's kind of a big deal. So what we are going to do is do our own version of one-point perspective as fast as we can. Think of this as an introduction to one-point perspective.
Okay, so to do one-point perspective, the first thing I'm going to do is fold my paper in half and make the horizon line. We've done that numerous times together in art in second grade and third grade. The horizon line is the horizontal line where the sky meets the ground. I'm going to trace that and draw a dot in the middle. That dot is a point, that is the vanishing point. All my lines and shapes will go to that vanishing point. And if you're doing 1 point perspective, you could do your vanishing point, you know, high up on the paper. You could do it low on the paper. If the horizon line is high, it looks like you're high up in the sky looking down. If your horizon line is low, it looks like you're laying on the ground. You're very low also. I'm going to draw diagonal lines that go to that vanishing point. I'm going to draw 2 diagonal lines. It looks like it forms a triangle, and I'm going to fill that triangle with horizontal lines. The closer I get to the vanishing point, the closer the horizontal lines need to be to each other. I want to draw a rectangle crossing the horizon line. That means part of it's above and part of it's below. And on the 2 corners closest to the vanishing point, I'm going to draw 2 diagonal lines. Next, I'll add windows, I'll add a barrel, and some of you may have guessed it, yes, we are drawing train tracks. Now, the American West and choo-choo trains, they weren't invented until the late 1800s in America. There is no way a Renaissance artist would have made a picture of the American West or choo-choo trains, because if you lived in the Renaissance in the 1500s, this is like 300 years in the future. Maybe Leonardo da Vinci could have predicted this, but maybe not. Just like the famous painting, The Presentation of the Keys, in that painting, the people in the foreground are big, the people in the middle ground are medium-sized, and the people in the background are teeny tiny. Well, I want to show some scale by drawing some cacti crossing the horizon line. I'll draw 2 big cacti crossing the horizon line. I will draw 2 medium-sized cacti crossing the horizon line. And I will draw 2 teeny tiny itty bitty cacti crossing the horizon line. If you want to populate your desert with some desert details, I could scribble scrabble some tumbleweed. I could scribble scrabble a tiny little train that doesn't have a lot of details. I can add puffs of smoke coming out. I can draw a flat top mountain, a mesa, or a butte. I can add a setting sun and make sure that the rays of the sun kind of follow 1 point perspective. Add some clouds. I just picked these train tracks because this is a quick and easy introduction to 1 point perspective, which really kind of took hold during the Renaissance, and artists to this day use it. I can't wait to see what yours looks like. See you later. Bye.
Pro tips. People have asked me before, Mr. Penn, why are you painting barefoot with no shoes on? And one reason I like to paint barefoot is because when you're painting a mural especially, or painting inside a house, you could drip paint. And stepping on paint and not realizing it is very bad, because next thing you know, you have made painted footprints all over the floor. That could be someone's carpet. That would be terrible. So the reason I like to paint barefoot is so that if I step in paint, I've got a better chance of feeling it on my foot. And if I feel paint on my foot, I can just, hop to where I need to get and clean it off. I don't want to name names or throw anyone under the bus or get anyone in trouble. But a few years ago, we had some painters come paint, and they did not paint barefoot. And you can see this red line. They left red footprints on the floor. So that is just a great reason why I like to paint barefoot. That's my pro tip this week. See you next time. Bonus points! 4th and 5th graders, do you think you could show me an example of 2 point perspective? Go ahead and try that. See you next time. Bye.